there are a lot of ways that you can make an offense really tough to match up with when you have multiple good tight ends. And I think Kansas has that maybe this year. And I think that is why this is one of the more intriguing groups. And it could be one of the groups that at the end of the year we look at and say this is maybe one of the more improved groups from last year to this year.
Paid all who enter and beware this podcast. That's right. This is the Paid Podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer. I'm here with Kevin Flaherty. We're brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner in all things possible. We are in for a very busy week this week. There is a lot going on and a lot to be excited about and a lot to be paying attention to on our feeds. So if you haven't already, please subscribe on our audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can head to our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN to get more content there on our YouTube channel as well. You can be sure to drop a comment, leave a like on the videos, and get us a 5-star rating and review on the audio platforms as well. You can also find us on social media at Payheed KCSN on Twitter, aka X. You can also find it, I guess, as long as X is still around or Twitter's still around. Who knows? For the time being, that's the best place to get us. You can also follow us individually at KFlaherty KCSN for Kevin. He tweets, and I'm at Nick Springer 29. Like I said, very, very busy week coming up, and that's because it's Big 12 tournament time with Kansas in the Big 12 tournament. We are going to be live on our YouTube channel after every game as far as KU goes. So could be one game, could be 3 games, could be 4 games. I guess we'll find out over the course of the week. So Wednesday night, tonight, if you're listening on Wednesday, we're going to be live late. Unfortunately, Kansas did get stuck with that late game time slot. So it's going to be a couple of late nights if Kansas is able to advance a little bit. But also, we're very excited later in the week to be joined by head baseball coach Dan Fitzgerald. He's going to be joining the show later on in the week. So you want to keep an eye out for that as Kansas is off to one of their best starts in program history. They are about to start conference play coming up this weekend at home against Baylor. And all I can say about that is crank the hog. So we're excited.
Yeah,
we're excited to talk to Dave Fitzgerald later on in the week. So you want to keep tuned in for that. On today's show, though, we are going to be talking some KU football. We're going to be kicking off our spring football series, position breakdowns, where we're going to be talking about each position group through the KU football roster as we progress through the next basically 6 weeks or so of spring football. I guess not like 5 weeks of spring football. Talking about each position group. We're going to be getting a chance to hear from all the position group coaches and individual players as well. So we're very excited about that. And we're kicking it off today talking about the tight end group. As we heard on Tuesday from Matt Lubick, who is the co-offensive coordinator for KU and also the tight ends coach, replacing, Jeff Grimes was tight ends coach, right? Yeah. So replacing Jeff Grimes in that position. Also, we got to hear from 3 different tight ends, Leyton Cure, big brother of Leyton Cure, who unfortunately is going to the wrong school. And you also have Keyan Burnett, the transfer from Arizona, who is KU's second highest rated transfer, I believe, behind Bengali Kamara on 247 Sports for this class. And then Deshawn Hanika, who overcame an injury and is back on the team this year. So we're going to be getting to all those interviews later on in the show. So let's just first start off with some of our thoughts a little bit on what we've seen. This tight end group, Kevin, actually, I think has the chance to be one of the most intriguing position groups on the roster. And the reason I say that is because your top 2 guys are essentially brand new. I just mentioned Keyan Burnett transferring from Arizona. Deshawn Hanika has obviously been in the program, but he hasn't taken a snap in a real game for KU because unfortunately he had an Achilles injury that in fall camp last year that kept him out the entire season. So you've got 2 really fresh faces that are probably going to be your 2 primary starters at that position. And the reason that intrigues me is because I almost wonder if, considering some of the question marks that we have at the wide receiver position, if that might put an emphasis on the usage of tight ends if those guys can step up in the passing.
Yeah, I actually jokingly asked Leyton Cure, I said, how many tight ends can you put on the field at once this year? And he said, hey, last year there were a couple times we had 4 tight ends on the field. And I think they feel like they could do that again if they wanted to do it. Last year, I think one of the interesting things about it was there were so many different types of players in that room, but you didn't necessarily have a real classic tight end in that group, right? You had Trevor Cardell, who was a high school wide receiver that bulked up and was maybe the closest thing to that. Jared Casey was a guy that wound up being a first team All Big 12 guy at fullback and was more of a move guy, H-back guy. Leyton Cure, probably a little bit more of a move guy, H-back guy. Tavita Noah, also a different kind of guy. But I think you have more of sort of that classic what teams look for at that tight end position this year when you do bring back Leyton Cure and he's able to do some of those same things. He's changed his body a lot this offseason. It's one of the more apparent things, when you see the team in person, is just noticing how different he looks. And you would understand that, right? Because he didn't have an offseason last year because of how late he joined the team. But when you look at Deshawn Hanika and you look at Keyan Burnett and how big both of those guys are, how much both of those guys can really run and test defenses down the seam, I think it really adds an element. And to your point of what you were talking about, it does maybe add a little bit of a security blanket, not just for Jalen Daniels, but also for that receiver group to kind of put things together. They don't have to be all everything right away. Kansas can go out there with some multiple tight end sets, some different looks, and find some ways to attack teams with those guys out there. And as we've seen with the Chiefs, when they have Travis Kelce and Noah Gray out there, as we saw with the Patriots before that, obviously, there are a lot of ways that you can make an offense really tough to match up with when you have multiple good tight ends. And I think Kansas has that maybe this year. And I think that is why this is one of the more intriguing groups. And it could be one of the groups that at the end of the year we look at and say this is maybe one of the more improved groups from last year to this year in terms of the output that they have at that position.
Well, and I also think you're going to see a different identity from this group.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on it there a little bit. I mean, think about what this group has been over the last 3-4 years. You go back to having a Mason Fairchild type player, and then Andy Kolnicki, right? I mean, I think Andy Kolnicki was maybe one of the more underrated parts of his game. Was think about how many times he was able to scheme tight ends wide open. I mean, Mason Fairchild, Jared Casey obviously has been a staple of that room, and those guys have all moved on, and obviously no more Andy Kolnicki as well. And so I think we're going to see this room take on a new identity this year as what you mentioned, maybe more of a downfield passing threat unit with those players. I mean, Keyan Burnett is massive, by the way.
Yeah,
he's 6'5" easily. Deshawn Hanika is certainly a large individual as well. And Hanika is a guy that I think this team was really excited about in fall camp last year before he suffered that Achilles injury. So, if he's able to come back at full strength, which Lubick mentioned that he wasn't 100% to start the spring, which is great news. Though that's a pretty dynamic 1-2 punch you had on a Leyton Cure. You look at some of the depth beyond that. You've got Carson Brune, a freshman, Jaden Ham as well, a local Eudora product. So there's some good depth in the room. It feels like Keyan Burnett was a big get for this position group, right? I think if without Keyan Burnett and the transfer portal, probably you'd have more questions. Now, obviously, Burnett's going to have to go out and kind of prove it. I guess that would be sort of the one question mark about this position group is what I mentioned to sort of kick off this whole conversation is we're talking about two guys that haven't played a single snap for Kansas at the tight end position being your 1-2 guys and Burnett and Hanika. So there could be the possibility for some, untapped potential, I guess, out of those two guys, but you hope that they can hit the ground running in the fall and be effective as extra targets for Jalen Daniels and this offense.
Yeah, and to your point, with the Achilles injury too, you're always a little bit hazy about, hey, what can you expect from somebody coming off of that injury? And
yeah,
I would say too, one of the things that's been really encouraging has been people have talked about, hey, Deshawn Hanika looks brand new. He looks like he's 100%. To your point, Lubick brought that up. Deshawn Hanika, when we talked to him today, and you'll hear that later in the show, but he said that they told him about 12 months. Well, it hasn't been 12 months since the Achilles injury. He said that it was his goal to cut that recovery time in half, and he said he didn't quite do that, But at the same time, he said he really started to feel like himself, in the winter and felt good cutting. And once he realized, hey, I'm cutting, I'm just fine, all of those things, I think the confidence level rose there. There wasn't the mental challenge. A lot of times when you see somebody coming back from a serious injury, they don't trust it. They're worried, like, hey, when I cut on this thing, is it going to give out? Is it going to get hurt again? You're not seeing that from Hanika. I think the other thing really positive about Hanika, Nick, um, and we talked about this with Coach Lubick, is Hanika is a guy that keeps getting brought up from different coaches as one of the leaders of this team. And I think that for a room that lost those guys like a Jared Casey that had the leadership that he did, like a Trevor Cardell, I think that bringing Hanika back and having him so willing to step into that leadership role. I mean, day one of spring practice when we were out there, he was the guy leading the tight end drills and everybody was following him. And that may not seem like a big deal, but you consider that he didn't play all last fall. And so for him to be the number one guy and everybody else to kind of watch him to see that they're doing the drill right and then go in, I think that's a really positive indicator. When KU got him, Nick, because he was at Iowa State, I talked to another Big 12 coach and just said sort of scouting report, Deshawn Hanika. Well, what do you think? And one of the things that he had brought up was your point actually about Andy Kotelnicki scheming Mason Fairchild open and the great job that they do. And he made the point that Deshawn Hanika is a guy that you don't necessarily have to scheme open because of the kind of athlete that he is. You can have him run a more traditional route without maybe all the window dressing, and he can just outrun a linebacker or he can get open on a safety. And so I'm really interested because you watch those few plays on Keyan Burnett's highlight tape from Arizona where he's making plays down the field. It feels like there is some untapped potential with that tight end group. And you can throw Leyton in there as well because they've really talked about Leyton being able to get open down the field too. And he had a moment or two like that this past year. This is a group that Kansas may be able to utilize, not just as, hey, you're a security blanket, catch the 8-yard pass on 3rd and 6, but also potentially to churn out some big plays in the passing game. And that was something they missed last year.
Well, and think about what you said about leadership for a moment. Think a bigger picture with that. This Kansas team lost 30-plus seniors. I mean, a bunch of leadership has gone off this team. Besides Jalen Daniels, there absolutely is going to need to be guys around this team that are going to step into leadership roles around the team. And I think it's great that Hanika seems like he is somebody that has taken the initiative on that. Like you mentioned, as we've kind of heard from different people around the team, that he's sort of stepping into that role because I think KU is going to need a lot more of that in terms of leadership, right? I mean, I think part of the reason why this team's season last year didn't maybe totally fall apart and they were able to pick things up towards the end was because of that core of leadership.
I agree.
They don't really have that this year outside of Jalen Daniels. So if you're unable to get off to a stronger start this year, that could be a bigger concern of trying to keep things together the way they did last year, down the stretch at least. But great to hear that Hanika is maybe one of those guys that's stepping into that role. What do you say we hear from Matt Lubick? We'll take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll get a chance to hear from Matt Lubick, everything he had to say when speaking with us and the media earlier on Tuesday. Of course, before we get to that, we have to tell you about our friends over at Home Field Apparel. You can shop Home Field Apparel at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code PAYHEAT24, 15% off your first order. Home Field just dropped some new gear, by the way, for Kansas, so be on the lookout for that and more. They've got 40-plus items. We're getting into spring weather more, so you can get some great items over there at homefieldapparel.com and use that promo code PAYHEAT24, 15% off your first order. More Kansas football talk is coming up next. Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story. Like Bryan Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brian Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner impossible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
This is the Paid Podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer here with Kevin Flaherty. We're brought to you by Emprise Bank. If you haven't already, subscribe on our audio platforms and on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. We are nearing 600 subscribers on our YouTube channel, so thank you so much to everybody that has already done so. And if you haven't already, do that, especially this week, because we're planning to be live on our YouTube channel for post-game shows after all of KU basketball's Big 12 tournament games. It's going to be a couple late nights because Kansas got stuck in the late time slot. So if you're still up late, if you're still, maybe you got some extra energy after the game, you can't fall asleep, come tune in, come hang out with us tomorrow, or I guess tonight, Wednesday night, for listening on Wednesday. And then as far as KU ends up going in the Big 12 tournament. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, Matt Lubick, the new co-offensive coordinator. I guess I shouldn't say new because he's returning to Kansas after having previously been at KU from Nevada. But the co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach had a chance to hear from him and speaking with the media. Here is everything he had to say earlier on Tuesday.
What has the start of spring practice been like for you so far? Obviously, when you were here before, you had a very different role.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I feel very fortunate to be back here, and the way people have treated me, can't thank them enough. And the fact that I'm working with a great group of players that are extremely motivated has made this a super experience.
Where do you see that motivation? Where does that stand out to you?
I don't know. I think a lot of it's intrinsic. We got a lot of self-starters, a lot of self-motivated guys. We have some good leadership, even though we lost, especially at the tight end position, we lost some guys, but we have some guys that have played a lot of football. And I think we have that not just at that position, but at the quarterback position, the running back position, the O-line position, where there's some really good senior leadership of not just talking about it, being about it, showing the right way to do it. And so that's been contagious. I think it's rubbed off on the rest of our offense.
What were your first impressions of Burnett, who transferred from Arizona?
Just what I knew I loved his tape, but just when you get to meet him in person, what an amazing guy. Goes out of his way to prepare. I mean, tries to do everything right. And then, seeing him move around and the way he attacks the football, the way he blocks, it's everything we thought we were going to get and maybe some more. So, yeah, very excited with what he's done so far.
With Deshawn Hanika, does he look back to 100%?
He does, yeah. He's taking every single rep, going 100 miles an hour. Had a great day today. He's been making a lot of plays, and we're moving him around a lot, and he's done a great job.
A couple of coaches so far have talked about his potential as a leader. I mean, how do you see him from like a personality standpoint in that respect?
Yeah, definitely leads by example. He lives in this building. Everything he does, he does it with a strain and a purpose to get better. When he's in meetings, he's super engaged. When he's in the weight room, he tries to lead by example and compete with other players. And so that's rubbed off not just on the tight end position, but other positions as well.
We've heard about Leyton Cure and the work he's put in the weight room. Just what sort of growth have you seen from him as spring's gone?
Yeah, so I've watched him on tape. I had limited tape last year, but he did some good things. He did a really good job in the run game. We didn't get him a lot of footballs, but he's shown, like today especially, we threw the ball a little bit more to the tight ends and shown that he can be a vertical threat, shown that he's physical. So we're able to do a lot of things with him in particular that's going to make our offense better.
And I know you have a helping hand in the offense. What's it been like watching the quarterbacks without Jalen Daniels?
Yeah, I mean, just very impressed. I think those guys, that's where it starts as far as the way they come out to prepare each day. They made a ton of plays. One of the reasons that we're able to do a lot this spring is because of what they did in the offseason. They kind of led our player workouts and our installs. They installed stuff because with NCAA rules, we were limited on what coaches could do. And it's like we're coaching an experienced group because of the way our quarterbacks have prepared them. So yeah, people see what the plays they make when they watch practice or watch them in a game, but it's what they're doing behind the scenes is making our offense go.
When you have Jalen, you've obviously helped put in an offense prior years. Can those guys do everything he can in the offense that you want?
No question. I love our skill set quarterback. I mean, we got 3 guys that are making plays, that can run the football, can make fast decisions and make all the throws. So yeah, we feel very fortunate where we don't have to change a game plan or manipulate things because a certain guy can't do this. And then mentally, all those guys, even our young guys, they know the playbook. So we're able to not slow down a beat, when you have a guy out.
Going back to Keyan, when you watched his tape at Arizona, what were some of the things you really liked about what he showed, and how do you feel like he would translate to what you guys want to do at the position?
Yeah, you can just do a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, we like at the tight end position, we want you to be an athlete first, and so he shows great athleticism, making plays in space, attacks the ball in the air, but at the same time, he does a good job when he was attached, being point of attack and blocking in space. He has a really good feel for that, and so. Yeah, I mean, he can help us both in the run game and the pass game, and that's the first thing we looked at, and he's doing it since he's been here.
You guys also have an experienced group at the top, but also some young guys that are developing. What's kind of the next step for the group like Jaden, Quentin, Carson, guys like that?
Yeah, just trying to get better each day, one step at a time, because it is a process. The first time those guys are taking reps, and sometimes the only way you get better is taking reps. Learning from the guys that are taking reps when you're not in there, and really embracing the fact that it's a process, and that part of the process is just giving your best in the moment. And giving your best in the moment might be paying attention to meeting, might be in the weight room, and it's really everything that you can do. And it doesn't just happen overnight, and it's just a step by step, trying to really focus on daily improvement and being in a constant state of improvement to get better.
You guys really had a very run game at Nevada. How does that help open things up for your running back, a guy like Daniel Highshaw, when the quarterback can do so many different things?
It really helps in the run game account for the extra guy, because you can read somebody. And so someone always has to account for the quarterback, so that's one less guy, you get a block. And so that helps right there, and then a lot of our run game is based on reads, where it's not a good look, for the running back, the quarterback's keeping it, so that makes him better. It helps the running back, not run into where there's an extra blocker. And then I also like the fact that our quarterbacks intellectually can handle identifying a defensive front and checking the play to get us in the best look to help out a Daniel Highshaw.
With the tight ends, this has been an offense over the years that has used a lot of them and lined them up in a lot of different places. What's the process been of trying to figure out who from your group can slot in where in that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're just trying guys. We're throwing basically the whole thing at them, and we're trying guys in different spots and really just evaluating. And it's a daily process, and we're kind of learning that as we go. And we'll have it figured out by game time. Who's the most efficient, who does this the best. And the thing I feel pretty comfortable about, I think we're gonna have some depth at that position, where we'll be able to play multiple guys that can do different things.
With Hanika, you said he was 100%, but what's impressed you about him so far?
Well, the leadership, which someone brought up here,
yeah.
What he's done going into here. He's been the leader of our room, how he coaches others, and then how he tries to do everything good. Whether it's point of attack in the run game, he takes a lot of pride in that, and he's harder on himself than I could ever be, and he's a perfectionist. And so he's practicing it. He knows to play at an elite level, you got to practice at an elite level, and that's rubbing off on the rest of our guys.
Matt, the first couple of years you were here, I know you've talked about being happy to be back and welcome back and all that. First couple of years you were here, part of building this thing up, then you go away. Sometimes you go away and come back to a place and it's different, feels different. Were there ways that this feels the same to you or feels different to you, or how did you kind of evaluate that when you got back here?
Yeah, I've noticed, just being gone for whatever it was it 2.5 years, I lose track of time, but just we're bigger, faster, and stronger, and the length. And so it's the talent level was the biggest thing that jumped out at me coming back here, even though we have lost some players. But I think through recruiting and then what our strength and conditioning staff has done in the off season, that's been the biggest thing. The familiarity of just being around good people that treat everyone good and make everyone feel at home. That has not changed. I was here when I was here before, and it's the same thing here. So, but yeah, the biggest thing that's jumped out at me is the athleticism of our football team.
Yeah.
Has the tight end room changed in terms of you guys being able to get more vertical, having guys, who have more speed to kind of test that seam a little
I think
bit?
so. Yeah, we're still figuring that out. I mean, we've got a lot of length in that room. We got guys that can run. So I'll be able to answer that more by the end of the spring. But I like what I see, and we do. To your point, I think we're probably taller than we've been in the past, and I don't know. I know we've had some guys that can run here in the past, but I think our guys are pretty athletic. I would argue we might be more athletic, but we still got to prove that.
That was co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach Matt Lubick speaking with the media on Tuesday. Kevin, just real quick, I kind of want to get your thought on this. I mean, what do you really expect from Matt Lubick? I guess sort of big picture, like even just beyond the tight ends, I guess, in terms of what his role within the offense is going to be with working with Jim Zabrowski versus how he might try to utilize those tight ends.
Yeah, I actually asked him in the clip that you just watched about the quarterback run game, and I think that one of the things that him working with Jim Zabrowski, they both kind of talked about this marriage of Zabrowski bringing a lot of the downfield passing stuff that you saw in the bowl game against UNLV when Zabrowski called the plays, and I think that's going to be a part of the offense this year. I also think that Lubick's knowledge of the option and his understanding of what they want to do, the different ways that they can dress up the running game, I think they're going to marry both of those things. And it's a really good fit for this team overall. And Nick, back to your point, that says a lot about the tight end position, right? Because one of the best ways that you can really impact the defense is to have multiple tight ends out there, move them around, shift them, give them different looks. And I think that this is a group, and Lubick said at one point in there, we got to see, by the end of spring, whether or not things are playing out like maybe we think they can. But I do think that this is a tight end group that should be able to maybe check the boxes of what they want from this offensive group.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I am curious how that marriage is going to work, right? I mean, Jim Zabrowski at one point had suggested that he just wanted to basically throw the ball down the field every play. When we heard from him earlier, I mean, he is the guy that's very creative and wants to try to use the ball down the field, and kind of as we've kind of highlighted through the show, like the tight ends may be a great opportunity to do that in terms of getting the ball upfield vertically in the middle of the field with those guys. So there's some potential there. I'm excited about it. Lubick, obviously, I think everyone you talk to, obviously he's dealt with some personal stuff, but everyone you talk to is that he's a fantastic analyst, a fantastic mind, and somebody that I think is going to be a major boon to this KU offense going forward as co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach. So let's take another quick break. Unless you got anything else to add real quick, Kevin?
No.
Okay. Let's take a quick break then, and when we come back, we get a chance to hear from a couple individual players that we've highlighted from the tight end group. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
This is the podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining us today as we go through our position breakdown from spring football of the tight ends. Had a chance to hear from the tight ends coach, Matt Lubick. Let's hear from some of the players. We got a chance to hear from 3 different players speaking with the media earlier in the week. First up is the guy we've talked about quite a bit on this show, Deshawn Hanika. He had a chance to kind of give a little bit more in-depth perspective on the injury that he suffered last year, coming back from it, and plenty more. Here's everything that Deshawn Hanika had to say.
It's been a long road. I'm just grateful to be out here. Grateful that Coach Leipold gave me that chance to come back. Thankful that the NCAA allowed me to come back. And I'm just enjoying it every day. I wake up with a smile on my face. One of the first guys here last to leave. Just not taking any of this for granted. Just blessed to be out there with them.
Do you feel any apprehension at all when you're out there in practice still, or do you feel like you're going and?
No, I mean I feel good. If it was my choice, I would have tried to go last year, which probably wouldn't have been the smart thing. But that's just the type of guy that I am. Doc gave me a timeline of 12 months, and my thought process was, all right, well, I'm gonna cut it in half, and almost did that. Shout out to Trent Carter and his staff, Madison Bean. She kind of led my rehab in that. She did a great job with that. Also, you know, great support staff back home. My wife, who's just an absolute rock star, you know, taking care of a 250-pound, you know, child in her eyes, as she would say, isn't the hardest, but she did a great job, and she pushed me every day, and you know, we made it back early, and I feel great out there moving around and ready to get to the season.
Deshawn, when you talked about the NCAA, did you have to go through an appeals process type thing or something?
You know, just had to send in a letter to get the medical red shirt. You know, you never want to be too confident in what could happen. Compliance here was, they were adamant that it was probably 95% going to get approved. They thought it was pretty cut and dry, but just didn't want to get overexcited. Kind of take it day by day, and you know, whatever happened. It was going to be up to the man upstairs, and I'm just happy that, you know, they granted me that extra year.
What did you know that you got it approved?
I knew right before we left for Christmas break.
Okay.
Did you always know you wanted to try and come back and play another year if you didn't get in it all last year?
I mean, it's been a dream of mine to play in the NFL. And my big thing was, you know, in 10, 15 years, what am I going to say when I look in that mirror? And, you know, it's that, well, what if I would have, you know, went back for one more year? You know, what if I would have did this? And I don't want to live with any what ifs. You know, I'm the oldest one here on the team. I hear it every day. You know, some pretty great nicknames from the young guys. But no, it's just that looking back on my career, it's just, I don't want to leave anything up to chance, and just want to try to still reach my dream, because I'm still that kid chasing the dream.
What are the nicknames?
You know, Grandpa, Old Timer, The Godfather. That's probably my favorite one.
Is it usually the same guys, or is it just everybody?
It's probably the same guys. It's, you know, a lot of the room, the tight end room, they definitely let me know every day. The quarterbacks, the receivers, the defense, when we're going 11 on 11, they love to chirp from the sideline, but I love it, you know.
At what point did you start to feel like yourself again, from an athletic standpoint?
Probably this winter. You know, Coach Sleeve and his staff did a great job in kind of changing workouts for me, focusing on things that I needed to get back. And, you know, we did a couple of the we wills that Coach Sleeve talked about. And, you know, after that first day, I felt great, you know, moving around, cutting, not even thinking about it. And like Dr. Bopat said, he said it was going to be more of a mental hurdle than anything. I think after that first one of those, I was over that mental hurdle and I was ready to get out there.
You mentioned you had a dream of playing in the NFL. What about Kansas made it a place that you thought you could go and maybe help you have a chance at that?
I mean, if you would have asked me probably 10 years ago when I was in high school, I would have probably said I'm not coming to Kansas. You know, even growing up 30 minutes down the street. But as I got older, and, you know, when Coach Leipold and his staff came in, and, you know, watching them have that turnaround from when I was at Iowa State, and it wasn't the same Kansas team that we had played every year. When I entered the portal and got the phone call from Coach Ianello and Coach Leipold, I could tell that they meant business, and that this program was on the uptrend. And I wanted to be a part of something special. And I sat down and I talked about it with my wife and with my family. And you know, the big thing was, how cool would it be to bring a Big 12 championship back to the home school, and, you know, and also break that streak that that school out west thinks that they hold so dear to their heart.
That was Deshawn Hanika, transfer from Iowa State, talking about coming back from injury and so on and so forth. Really excited about what he could bring to this offense. Another guy that we've talked about quite a bit on the show and who we expect to be probably one of the top 2 tight ends is Keyan Burnett, another transfer from Arizona. Here's what he had to say about his transition coming to KU and plenty more.
Keyan, just what's the process been like of adapting since you got here?
Yeah, it's been a real smooth transition. I've enjoyed it a lot, just coming in and meeting all the guys and all the coaches, and learning a new offense, obviously. It's been really seamless, and I feel like I fit right in.
You were a highly coveted guy in the portal. What was it about Kansas that made you feel like this was the place for you?
Yeah, it was a number of things. I mean, just looking at the offense that Coach Z wants to run, his threat with the right amount of tight ends in the tight end room, and the different things he wants to do, I think is really unique. And I see that from a lot of different schools. and obviously a quarterback room like we have, and JD behind the wheel, you can't go wrong. So I think it'd be really dangerous.
Can you talk about, I know you guys had some ties to Rob Ianello. How much did that help out?
Huge. I mean, yeah, Coach I meant a lot through this whole process. He was really instrumental. He and my dad go way back at Arizona in the Desert Storm days in the 90s. But just to hear his stories and to be around him, really, really cool guy. So.
When you're on your visit and they do like film stuff with you, who are they kind of showing you clips of from the past?
Really everybody. I mean, we were looking at a lot of mostly last year's tape, Trevor and the guys they had last year, and years prior. So yeah.
What have your impressions been of Coach Lubick?
I would say just the overall football guru. Like, he really knows his X's and O's, and he's a guy that you can sit down with and just tell he's been around. He really knows his stuff. So, I consider myself really blessed. I've gotten here. He's my third tight end coach now. So a bunch of different perspectives on different things. And like I said, he just knows a lot. To be able to soak up all that is a blessing.
How quickly do you pick up, you mentioned he's a guru, just how quickly did you pick that up after meeting him?
That's a good question, because I would say, he wasn't really around. He was obviously out of town with this whole thing when I was being recruited. But really, like, within the first week, I'd say, like, just once we got to sit down and get acclimated to things, and he was able to lay out the game plan to me and kind of picked it up fast. So,
in terms of your own skill set, what are some things that you hang your hat on?
I would just say being a complete tight end. Obviously there's guys in the game now that are specialized in certain things, whether it be in line or being vertical threats. But I'm trying to just make my focus this year and moving forward in this whole process is being as complete every down tight end as I possibly can be.
What do you see from the tight end group so far in spring football?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very explosive tight end room. You have guys like Deshawn, obviously, who's a seasoned veteran, and then Leyton Cure coming up too. And then we have a lot of talented young guys as well. So, I mean, it's a great room, and everyone's been really welcoming and open arms, and really fun guys to go to work with.
You and Deshawn on the field at the same time, like, what can you guys do to a defense?
Man, it's really special. That's a great point because, obviously I talked about how talented he is, and obviously just knowing what I can do, I think it'll put a lot of pressure on the defense in terms of personnel groupings and how they want to play us.
Who are some players that have helped you kind of adapt to this new environment?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's really been great, to be honest. This is a really strong team built on a really strong culture. So I would just say really everybody, like Deshawn has been great. All the quarterbacks have been phenomenal in terms of that. Cole and JD, everyone's really kind of had a process in that. So,
how do you think that culture's been able to shine through and persist even with so many new guys coming in? And I guess what do you think are the defining qualities of that culture or someone who's new to it?
Yeah, I would say just looking at it, I think that the main reason is this is a player-led team. I think a lot of people kind of say that and, rah-rah, whatever, but I really look at it, and I've come from a couple good teams in my past, but this is a real player-led team, and they're disciplined, and everyone kind of holds each other accountable. So,
You've been a West Coast guy, went to college in Arizona. What's it like now being in a place like Lawrence?
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely a huge change-up for sure. The biggest thing that stands out to me is just the Midwest hospitality in general. It's real. Just being around town, how welcoming everybody is and how friendly they all are. And it's great. So, I mean, Lawrence is special for me already. I'm enjoying it here. So.
You like seeing the snow on the ground?
Yeah, no, I've never seen that in my life, especially the blizzards and everything, but definitely a change up for sure, but I enjoy it.
Obviously, JD's recovering, but how does Zeke and Cole look out there?
They look great. I mean, those guys they're really talented, both of them. Really, all of them kind of all stand out to me. Just in terms of their leadership and their professionalism and how they go about their work every day. And I would just say, like, their ball placement in general, like, it just really stands out to me. I'm really impressed. So.
We hear from a lot of new guys about Coach Sleeve. Just in your perspective, what have you liked about working with him in the weight room and the culture?
Yeah, Sleeve he's been special, man. Like, coming into this process, he's exceeded my expectations of what I expected from a strength coach, I'll say. So he's been really instrumental. He has a huge role in everything that the team does. So he's been great.
And last but not least, one more player we got to hear from out of that tight end room was Leyton Cure, who, of course, came in last season from Fort Hays State, had his younger brother, Lincoln, in a highly competitive recruitment. He ends up going to the school out west, K-State. Boo. But Leyton is always great to talk to. He's a really fun guy, and here's everything he had to say about how things have been going so far this spring.
Last year I kind of looked at Deshawn as kind of like a coach to me. He was helping me out a lot on all this stuff because he had been here 6 months before me, so he had a little bit better understanding than I did, and was kind of there to calm me down or help me walk through stuff. And now that he's out on the field with me, and we can kind of talk to each other on what we're seeing and stuff like that, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm so happy to see him back out there and running around because that's what he wants to do.
Deshawn was saying you guys razz him pretty good in the tight end room about being the oldest guy.
Yeah, we give him a little bit of crap about the oldest guys, but yeah, I'd say our tight end room we're pretty old anyways. I think me, Deshawn, and Key we're pretty old, and then it's Q, Jaden, and Carson are the young guys. So we're an old group, but I think the group as a whole we're just a bunch of leaders, and just throughout the off season we've kind of spoke up and been those guys that the team can lead on and stuff like that. So it's been awesome. I think our group is in a really good spot right now, and we're definitely pushing the needle forward.
You didn't get a chance to go through the offseason last year. You've made some big gains, I know, already this offseason, cut your body fat down. Can you talk about that process a little bit and kind of where you're at, weight, body fat wise, all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's been awesome being here for my first off season. A little bit different than what I'd done at my previous school. A lot more. Our off season was more like just lifting straight weights and stuff like that. We did a little bit more running and moving around and stuff like that. So I felt pretty good about this off season. I'm kind of still sitting at about the same weight I've been at, I guess around 240. And coming in, my body fat was about like 11 or so, but it's dropped down to high 8, low 9. So I'm trying to lower that down, but at the same time, our nutritionist, she says, I mean, you're already lower than the league average. She's like, I don't know if you need to lose that much more weight rather than putting on more muscle. So that's kind of what my body's been up to.
We know Grimes told us that he had a tight end pass in his playbook. Have you talked to Zabrowski and Lubick about the chance that, hey, I used to play quarterback, I can throw the ball if you guys got that thing?
We haven't really talked to him about it yet. We kind of mentioned it yesterday when we were throwing around the balls and walk through, and Jaden said something about it, and then Deshawn said he could throw it. And then I spoke up. I said, well, I'm the only one in this tight end room that's actually got a completion in college right now. So I think my case is a little bit better than theirs. But it's hopefully that'd be cool if we get a little tight end pass in there. But we'll see what happens.
It's the 5-year anniversary of kind of when COVID shut everything down, and you were a COVID recruit. Nobody was able to see you play basically, and all that. Looking back, what was that process like, and how is it being at Kansas, a place where maybe you felt like you should have been from the start, but people didn't get a chance to see you?
I can't believe it's been 5 years since COVID. Yeah. That's crazy, but yeah, that time was definitely different. Not being able to go to camps and stuff like that. But I can't harp on my journey at all because I really loved my time at Fort Hays. I met a lot of good people there, a lot of good players, and I think I learned a lot there. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a chip on my shoulder being able to work myself up to this level. And I wish I could have started at a Division I, but it's been a blessing the way that I came here.
What's the Sunflower Showdown going to mean this coming year?
It'll probably mean a lot. I'm excited for it. It's already so far in the future, but my brother, he's already giving me crap about it. But I've been telling him, I'm like, you kind of got to worry about a state championship this weekend, so hopefully you can get that done. But I think it'll be a big turnout for the Cure family, and get a lot of family there, and I'm hoping that our side comes out on top. That'd be awesome.
How many tight ends would you like to get on the field at one time?
I think we did 14 personnel last year,
yeah,
and I definitely think we could be able to do that. We've always thrown our little 2 cents in. Like the whole tight end crew. We want to do like one of us plays quarterback, another fullback, and a halfback, and then 2 wide receivers. So we kind of joke around about stuff, but there's always a possibility of it happening in this offense.
That was Leyton Cure talking about how things have been going so far this spring for KU. And that about pretty much wraps it up for our position breakdown, this first one of the spring of the tight end room. As I said earlier in the show, we're going to be breaking down every position group over the course of the next 5 weeks in our KU football position breakdown series through spring football, leading up to the spring showcase later on in April. We're also going to be talking plenty of KU basketball coming up this week with Kansas at the Big 12 tournament going into the NCAA tournament. We're also going to be joined by head baseball coach Jayden Fitzgerald later on in the week. So there's going to be tons of great content coming your way here on the show. So be sure, if you haven't already, you better subscribe on our audio platforms on Apple and Spotify. And if you're on our YouTube, on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN, you can follow there, subscribe, turn on your notification bell so you get notified when we go live after some of these KU basketball games this week and plenty more as well. But Kevin, you got anything else to add here on our position breakdown before we get out of here?
No, I like I said earlier, I do think that this is one of the groups that you could look back at the end of the year and say, this is a group where Kansas actually took a step forward. And I do think while you don't have the experience as much at Kansas, Leyton Cure is an experienced guy. He did play last year. You have Deshawn Hanika, who's obviously an old man in the room, as you saw from that clip, players calling him grandpa and all of those things.
Yeah, but first of all, that is just
how old he is.
That is just disrespectful. I mean, I don't. Come on.
That's rough. That's rough for those of us who are significantly older than Brendan Tommy. And then Keyan Burnett has played quite a bit of football too, and I do think that they're only going to get more comfortable in this offense as the spring goes, and I'm interested to see if they have the impact this season that I think, and I think I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I think that we think that they could have on this offense this season.
Yeah, I agree. You can't put words in my mouth in that situation, because I agree. I think there is a potential that they could have a pretty significant impact, especially in the passing game, right? I mean, I think you look back at some of the previous iterations of this room, kind of like we touched on earlier with Andy Kolnicki, where, there may have been more of an emphasis on blocking from the tight end standpoint with Jared Casey and even like a Mason Fairchild. But I think this group has the potential to be not that I'm saying they will be bad blockers, but I think they have the potential to have maybe a higher ceiling as a whole as pass catchers.
Yeah,
for this team, which again, I think with the combination of the fact that you do have so many question marks at wide receiver, could be very beneficial for this room and for the offense as a whole. So.
Yeah. I think the other thing, Lubick talked a lot about how running option stuff allows you to read a defender. And I think that when you're confusing the defense, and tight ends are going to be part of that confusion and sort of that misdirection, that's going to help those guys in as blockers as well, because they're not necessarily going to have to be point of attack guys all the time. There's going to be chances where they're kind of coming from areas where defenders aren't necessarily expecting them. And hopefully there's going to be times where maybe the defender is expecting them and they run right by that defender and give Jalen Daniels a quality target to throw the ball to.
That's going to wrap up our first position breakdown of the spring for the tight end group. As I said, we'll be going through every position over the course of the next month plus through the rest of spring football. Really excited to hear from all the different position coaches. Those are guys we don't really get to hear much from during the course of the season. So this is kind of the one time where we get to hear a little bit more in-depth analysis from those position coaches, and also talking with the players as well. So we're excited about that, and we'll have plenty more of that coming up throughout the rest of spring. Once again, I can't reiterate enough, we're going to be live for KU basketball coming up through the course of the rest of this week for the Big 12 tournament as far as they go, and be on the lookout for that Dane Fitzgerald interview. If you haven't heard from Dan Fitzgerald before, he is very exciting and will really get you fired up, especially considering the season that KU baseball has had so far, with conference play getting underway coming up later this weekend. But until next time, he's Kevin Flaherty. I'm Nick Springer. Once again, subscribe if you haven't already, anywhere you get your audio or video. But until then, we'll talk to you again soon. See ya.